The mining station on Kepler 442b hummed with the mechanical symphony of extraction equipment. Among the towering alien forms that dominated the facility, one figure stood out for all the wrong reasons. Marcus Chun moved between the massive drilling platforms like a shadow, his human frame dwarfed by the 8-foot Krillian supervisors and the hulking Vorthak heavy laborers. The other species barely acknowledged his existence. To them, humans were a recent addition to the Galactic community, a young race that had stumbled into faster-than-light travel barely 50 years ago. They were seen as weak, fragile creatures suited only for menial tasks that required precision rather than strength. Marcus wiped the sweat from his brow as he calibrated another mining laser. The work was tedious, but it paid well enough to support his family back on Earth. He had volunteered for this 3-year contract despite knowing he would be the only human among hundreds of aliens. What he hadn't expected was the complete dismissal of his capabilities. "Human," barked Supervisor Zekthar, his reptilian features twisted in perpetual annoyance. "The tertiary drill array requires recalibration. See that you don't damage anything valuable." Marcus nodded without looking up. He had learned early that eye contact with the Krillians was interpreted as a challenge. Their society valued dominance above all else, and humans ranked somewhere below the automated maintenance drones in their hierarchy. The tertiary array was located in the deepest section of the mining complex, where the ambient temperature soared beyond what most species could tolerate. It was another reason humans were relegated to this work. Their adaptability to extreme environments was one of the few traits the aliens acknowledged, though they viewed it as a primitive survival mechanism rather than anything impressive. As Marcus descended into the sweltering depths, he noticed something odd in the geological scanner readings. The mineral density patterns didn't match the survey data. He frowned, running a more detailed analysis. The discrepancies were significant, suggesting either equipment malfunction or something far more concerning. The scanner revealed a massive hollow space beneath the current mining operation. According to the readings, it stretched for kilometers in every direction. This wasn't mentioned in any of the geological surveys that had been conducted before the mining operation began. Marcus documented his findings and submitted them through the proper channels. Within hours, his report was dismissed by Chief Geologist Vexmore, a Thrillaxian whose tentacled form writhed with what Marcus had learned was amusement. "Young human," Vexmore's translated voice dripped with condescension. "Your primitive scanning techniques are clearly malfunctioning. Our advanced surveys detected no such anomalies. Continue your assigned tasks, and leave the geology to your betters." But Marcus couldn't shake his unease. His father had been a mining engineer, and his grandfather before him. The Chun family had extracted resources from hostile environments for generations, developing an intuitive understanding of geological formations that went beyond technological readings. Over the following weeks, Marcus noticed other irregularities. Seismic activity that didn't correlate with the mining operations. Atmospheric readings that fluctuated without explanation. Temperature variations that defied the planet's established patterns. He began conducting his own investigations during his off shifts, using his access codes to review deeper geological data. The more he learned, the more concerned he became. The hollow space beneath them wasn't natural. It showed signs of artificial construction, with perfect geometric dimensions that no geological process could create. When Marcus tried to bring his findings to Supervisor Zekthar, he was met with outright hostility. The Krillian scales darkened to a deep crimson, a sign of dangerous anger. "Insignificant human," Zekthar hissed. "You dare question the expertise of your superiors? Your species has been mining asteroids for mere decades, while we have extracted resources from 1,000 worlds. Return to your duties before I recommend your immediate termination." Marcus realized that the aliens' dismissal of humanity wasn't just cultural prejudice, it was willful blindness. Their advanced technology and supposed superiority had made them lazy, relying on automated systems and established protocols rather than actual observation and critical thinking. The breakthrough came when Marcus detected a pattern in the seismic readings. The vibrations weren't random. They followed a mathematical sequence that resembled a communication protocol. Something was trying to send a message from the depths below. Working through the night, Marcus managed to decode portions of the signal. What he discovered made his blood run cold. The transmissions weren't coming from the hollow space. They were going to it. The mining operation itself was generating a response pattern that was awakening something that had been dormant for millennia. The ancient civilization that had once inhabited Kepler 442b hadn't disappeared through natural extinction or galactic war. They had gone into a form of technological hibernation, waiting for specific conditions to trigger their return. The mining vibrations, the electromagnetic signatures of the extraction equipment, the particular mineral disturbances, all of it was serving as a massive activation sequence. Marcus tried once more to warn the alien supervisors, providing detailed documentation of his findings. This time, Security Chief Gorthak, a massive Vorthak whose species prized physical dominance above all else, personally delivered the response. "Human pest," Gorthak rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "You will cease this disruptive behavior immediately. Your primitive brain cannot comprehend the complexities of our operation. One more interruption, and you will be ejected from the station without a return pod." The threat was clear. In the empty space between worlds, ejection meant death. Marcus retreated to his quarters, officially silenced but far from defeated. If the aliens wouldn't listen to reason, he would have to take action himself. The human worked frantically over the next several days, using his maintenance access to modify the mining equipment. His plan was simple but dangerous. If he could disrupt the activation sequence by changing the vibrational patterns, he might prevent whatever was sleeping below from fully awakening. However, his alterations were discovered before he could implement them fully. Supervisor Zekthar arrived with a security detail, his scales nearly black with rage. "Sabotage," he snarled. "The human has been sabotaging our equipment. This explains the recent efficiency decreases." Marcus was dragged before Station Commander Vrakthal, an ancient Krillian whose scarred hide spoke of countless battles. The commander's cold eyes held no mercy as he reviewed the evidence. "Human Marcus Chun," Vrakthal intoned formally, "you stand accused of sabotage, insubordination, and disruption of galactic mining operations. The penalty is immediate exile." "Commander," Marcus said, his voice steady despite his fear, "I'm trying to save everyone on this station. There's something down there, something that's waking up because of our mining operations. My modifications were trying to prevent." Vrakthal's clawed hand slammed onto the desk, silencing him. "Enough lies. Your species' desperation to appear relevant has driven you to these pathetic acts. Guards, prepare the exile pod." As Marcus was marched toward the docking bay, the first tremor shook the station. It was subtle, barely noticeable except to someone who had been monitoring the seismic activity as closely as Marcus had. The activation sequence was nearly complete. The exile pod was little more than a metal coffin with basic life support and a distress beacon. It was designed to keep him alive long enough for a passing ship to potentially rescue him, though in this remote system, that possibility was virtually non-existent. As the pod was loaded into the launch tube, Marcus made one final attempt to communicate with the station. "Commander Vrakthal, please listen to me. In approximately 6 hours, you're going to detect massive seismic activity from the lower levels. Whatever you do, don't send anyone down to investigate. Evacuate the station and call for military support." Vrakthal's response was to activate the launch sequence personally. The pod shot away from the mining station like a bullet, carrying Marcus into the vast emptiness of space. Through the small porthole, he could see the massive structure growing smaller, its lights twinkling against the alien landscape of Kepler 442b. He activated the distress beacon, though he held little hope of rescue. Hours passed in the cramped confines of the pod. Marcus rationed his water and tried to conserve oxygen while monitoring the emergency communication channels. Then, exactly as he had predicted, frantic transmissions began flooding the frequencies. "Mayday, Mayday," came Supervisor Zekthar's panicked voice. "This is Mining Station 77 Alpha. We are experiencing massive seismic events. Lower levels are compromised. Unknown structures are emerging from beneath the facility." More voices joined the chaos. Reports of massive mechanical constructs rising from the planet's depths. Ancient technology activating throughout the mining complex. Emergency bulkheads failing as something enormous forced its way to the surface. Marcus listened with grim satisfaction as the aliens who had dismissed him as a primitive fool scrambled to understand what was happening. Their advanced technology was useless against a threat they had refused to acknowledge existed. The last transmission from the station came 18 hours after his exile. Commander Vrakthal's voice, strained and desperate, cut through the static. Unknown vessels approaching the station. They appear to be of ancient origin. Defensive systems are ineffective. All personnel to evacuation pods. This is Commander Vrakthal's final transmission. Then, silence. Marcus floated alone in space, the sole survivor of humanity's presence on Kepler 442b. But survival was just the beginning. As he adjusted the pod's primitive sensors, he detected something that filled him with both hope and determination. The ancient ships that had destroyed the mining station were not randomly destructive. They were methodical, precise, and they had ignored his tiny escape pod completely. Whatever intelligence controlled them had recognized something in him that the aliens had failed to see. His distress beaconed suddenly, activated with an incoming signal. The transmission was unlike anything in the standard galactic communication protocols. It was older, more complex, and somehow familiar. As Marcus worked to decode it, he realized that his grandfather's stories about the family's mining heritage had contained more truth than he had ever imagined. The signal wasn't just a communication, it was an invitation. Marcus Chun had been underestimated his entire time on the station. The aliens had seen him as weak, primitive, and expendable. They had exiled him for trying to save their lives. But, as he prepared to accept the mysterious invitation, Marcus realized that their greatest error wasn't in dismissing human capabilities. Their greatest error was in failing to understand that humanity's greatest strength had never been physical power or advanced technology. It was adaptability, intuition, and the ability to see patterns that others missed. It was the capacity to survive and thrive in conditions that would destroy supposedly superior species. The ancient civilization awakening on Kepler 442b had recognized these qualities. They had been waiting not for any advanced species to trigger their return, but for a species with the specific characteristics that humanity possessed. As Marcus activated his pod's engines to respond to the signal, he smiled grimly. The galaxy was about to learn that underestimating humans was a mistake that could have consequences beyond imagination. The mining station had been just the beginning. The real test of humanity's worth was about to commence. Marcus Chin's escape pod drifted through the void toward coordinates that shouldn't have existed on any star chart. The ancient signal had guided him past the remains of the mining station, where twisted metal and debris told the story of a civilization's hubris. The massive alien vessels that had emerged from Kepler 442b were gone, vanished as mysteriously as they had appeared. The coordinates led to a space station that defied every principle of engineering Marcus had ever learned. It appeared to be constructed from a single massive asteroid, but the surface modifications revealed technology so advanced that it made the galaxy's current civilizations look like children playing with toys. Docking bays opened in the asteroid's surface with perfect precision, welcoming his tiny pod into a cavernous hangar filled with ships of impossible design. As Marcus stepped out of his pod, he found himself breathing normally despite being inside an asteroid. The gravity felt identical to Earth's standard, and the air carried the crisp, clean quality of a perfectly maintained life support system. But the most shocking discovery was waiting for him in the hangar's reception area. The figure approaching him was unmistakably human. "Welcome aboard the Prometheus Archive, Marcus Chun," the woman said, extending her hand in a gesture that seemed both familiar and surreal after months among aliens. She appeared to be in her 40s, with the kind of weathered features that spoke of experience and hardship. "I'm Captain Sarah Torres, formerly of the Earth Colonial Survey Corps. Though I've been here considerably longer than your records would suggest possible." Marcus stared at her in confusion. "Captain Torres? But the Colonial Survey Corps was disbanded 30 years ago after the Centauri incident. You should be dead? Retired? Living on a pension on Mars." Sarah smiled grimly. "Time moves differently here, Marcus. The Prometheus Archive exists outside normal temporal flow. I've been here for what feels like decades, but according to Galactic Standard Time, I arrived only 6 months before you." She led him through corridors that seemed to stretch infinitely into the asteroid's depths. The walls were lined with displays showing star maps, technological schematics, what appeared to be genetic data from dozens of species. But human genetic markers appeared more frequently than any other. The archive was created by a civilization that called themselves the progenitors, Sarah explained as they walked. They seeded the galaxy with life millions of years ago, then went into stasis to observe how their children would develop. They've been waiting for one specific event, the emergence of a species with the right combination of traits to inherit their legacy. Marcus felt a chill of realization. Humanity. Not just humanity, Sarah corrected. The right humans. The progenitors learned from observing galactic civilizations that intelligence alone wasn't enough. Neither was technology or physical power. They needed a species that combined adaptability with intuition, technological innovation with the ability to think beyond conventional parameters. They entered a vast chamber that Marcus initially mistook for a command center. Banks of computers and displays surrounded a central platform where a figure waited for them. But as Marcus approached, he realized he was looking at something far beyond any technology he knew. The being on the platform appeared to be in stasis, connected to the archive systems through neural interfaces that pulsed with gentle light. But what struck Marcus wasn't the alien nature of the figure. It was how familiar it seemed. The proportions were nearly human, though taller and more refined, as if humanity represented an early sketch for this perfect final form. "This is Archive Master Kaldun," Sarah said softly. "The last active progenitor. He's been waiting in this state for 3 million years for the right moment to transfer the archive's knowledge and responsibility to humanity's guardians." "Guardians?" Marcus echoed. "The progenitors don't reproduce the way other species do," Sarah explained. "They transfer their consciousness, their accumulated knowledge, and wisdom to worthy successors. But the process requires beings capable of handling the mental and physical transformation involved. Most species would be destroyed by the attempt." Marcus stared at the dormant figure, beginning to understand the true scope of what he had stumbled into. The mining operation wasn't random, was it? They knew I was there. The archive has been monitoring human expansion into the galaxy for decades. When they detected someone with the right genetic and psychological markers working on Kepler 442b, they arranged for the awakening sequence to begin. Your presence was the final variable they needed. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. The other humans? My family, Earth, the colonies, are about to face the greatest test in human history, Sarah finished. The galactic powers that dismissed us as primitives are about to discover what the progenitors recognized. Humanity isn't just another species fumbling around the galaxy. We're the inheritors of the most advanced civilization ever to exist. Sarah led him to another chamber where dozens of humans worked at stations Marcus couldn't begin to understand. They moved with the confident efficiency of people who had been training for this moment their entire lives. But Marcus recognized none of them from any human colony or organization he knew. "We call ourselves the Archive Guard," Sarah explained. "Humans who were identified and recruited by the progenitor monitoring systems. Some of us came here voluntarily when we received the call. Others, like you, were forced to leave their old lives behind when conventional thinking failed to recognize the threats we face." "What threats?" Marcus asked, though part of him already knew the answer. "The galaxy isn't as stable as it appears," Sarah said, activating a holographic display that showed the positions of major civilizations. "The Krillians, the Thrillaxians, the Vorthak, they've all reached technological and evolutionary dead ends. Their societies are stagnant, their thinking rigid. They've stopped adapting and started declining." The display zoomed in on specific systems, showing spreading zones of red that Marcus realized represented conflict and collapse. In approximately 50 galactic standard years, their civilizations will begin falling to a combination of internal decay and external pressures. Wars will break out over dwindling resources. Entire species will go extinct. Marcus felt sick. And humanity? "Will either rise to become the galaxy's new guardians," Sarah said, "or be crushed along with everyone else." The progenitors saw this pattern before in previous galactic cycles. Advanced civilizations rise, dominate, grow complacent, and fall. It's happened 7 times in this galaxy alone. But humans are different. Sarah's smile was fierce. Humans are the first species the progenitors have encountered that shows no signs of reaching an evolutionary plateau. We keep adapting, keep pushing boundaries, keep finding new solutions to impossible problems. Where other species see limitations, humans see challenges to overcome. She gestured to the workers around them. Every person here represents a different human capability that the galaxy will need. Engineers who can think beyond conventional physics. Strategists who can outmaneuver civilizations with thousands of years more experience. Scientists who can innovate solutions that established species would never consider. Marcus watched a young woman manipulating what appeared to be a stellar cartography display, her movements casual despite working with forces that could reshape solar systems. How long do we have? The first signs of galactic instability will appear within 5 years, Sarah said. The Krillian Empire will face its first major rebellion. The Thrallaxian trade networks will begin collapsing. The Vorthak military will split into competing factions. And every established power will be looking for someone to blame. They'll blame humanity. They already are, Sarah confirmed. Your experience on the mining station was typical. Across the galaxy, humans are being dismissed, marginalized, and expelled from positions where they might gain influence. The established powers see us as a threat to their stability. Marcus realized the terrible irony of the situation. They're creating the very conditions that will lead to their downfall. By pushing humans away, they're ensuring we'll develop independently. Exactly. And when their civilizations begin failing, they'll discover that humanity has been preparing for this moment for decades. We'll be the only species with the adaptability and innovation necessary to hold galactic civilization together. Sarah led him to a viewing port that looked out into space. In the distance, Marcus could see the glow of Kepler 442b, where the mining station had once operated. But now the planet's surface showed signs of massive construction, as ancient progenitor machinery resurfaced and began rebuilding. That's our first major project, Sarah explained. Kepler 442b will become humanity's first advanced world, built with progenitor technology, but adapted to human needs and capabilities. From there, we'll begin establishing a network of worlds that can serve as refuges and strongholds when the galactic collapse begins. And the Archive Master will transfer his consciousness to the first human ready to accept the full inheritance. The process will grant that person access to millions of years of accumulated knowledge, technology, and wisdom. But it will also transform them into something beyond current human limitations. Marcus felt the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders. You're asking me to become something that isn't human anymore. We're asking you to become more human than anyone has ever been before, Sarah corrected. The progenitors didn't want to replace humanity with something else. They wanted to help us reach our full potential. The transformation doesn't remove human nature. It amplifies everything that makes us unique. She gestured to the other archive guards. Each of us has undergone a partial transformation, gaining enhanced capabilities while retaining our essential humanity. The Archive Master's inheritance goes far beyond that, but the core person remains unchanged. Marcus looked around the chamber, seeing his species with new eyes. These weren't aliens in human disguise. They were humans who had been given the tools to become what they were always meant to be. Their confidence came not from abandoning their nature, but from fully embracing it. What about Earth? Marcus asked. My family, the billions of people who don't know any of this is happening. We'll be protected, Sarah promised. But they'll also need to be prepared. Humanity's role as galactic guardians isn't something we can keep secret forever. Earth will become the heart of a new kind of civilization, one based on human principles of adaptability and growth rather than the stagnation that dooms other species. The choice facing Marcus was overwhelming. Accept the transformation and become something unprecedented in galactic history, or remain as he was and watch both humanity and the galaxy slide toward chaos. But, as he considered his options, he realized there was no real choice at all. The aliens on the mining station had dismissed him as primitive and weak. They had exiled him rather than listen to warnings that could have saved their lives. In doing so, they had demonstrated exactly why their civilizations were doomed to fall. Humanity's future wouldn't be built on the arrogance of assumed superiority or the comfort of established hierarchy. It would be built on the very traits that made Marcus capable of seeing threats others missed, of adapting to situations others couldn't handle, of surviving when others would perish. "When do we begin?" Marcus asked. Sarah smiled. And, for the first time since leaving Earth, Marcus felt like he was truly home. "We've already begun. The question now is how quickly we can prepare for what's coming." As if summoned by his decision, Archive Master Kaldun began stirring from his million-year slumber. The neural interfaces pulsed brighter, and displays throughout the chamber came alive with data streams that would take conventional computers centuries to process. The inheritance was about to begin, and, with it, humanity's transformation from galactic outcasts to the inheritors of the greatest civilization ever to exist. The species that other races had underestimated was about to become their salvation. Whether those species would be wise enough to accept that salvation remained to be seen. The transformation of Marcus Chun began at the moment Archive Master Kaldun's eyes opened for the first time in 3 million years. The ancient progenitor's gaze held depths of knowledge that made Marcus feel like he was staring into the accumulated wisdom of entire civilizations. But, rather than feeling overwhelmed, Marcus felt a strange sense of recognition, as if he were looking at a reflection of humanity's ultimate potential. The neural transfer process took place over 17 days, though Marcus lost track of time within the archive's chambers. Kaldun guided him through memories that spanned galactic cycles, showing him the rise and fall of 7 different advanced civilizations. Each had followed the same pattern: rapid technological advancement, galactic dominance, social stagnation, and inevitable collapse. But, through it all, Marcus retained his essential humanity. The knowledge he gained didn't replace his human perspective, it enhanced it, showing him how uniquely valuable human traits really were in the vast scope of galactic history. When the transfer completed, Marcus emerged with capabilities that defied conventional understanding. He could process information at speeds that made quantum computers seem sluggish. His awareness extended across space through the archive's sensor networks. His understanding of physics, biology, and engineering had expanded to encompass principles that current galactic science wouldn't discover for millennia. Yet he still remembered the taste of his mother's cooking, still felt homesick for Earth's blue skies, still worried about his family's safety in the coming chaos. "How do you feel?" Sarah asked as Marcus opened his eyes in the archive's medical bay. Marcus considered the question carefully. His enhanced awareness could detect the quantum fluctuations in the station's power core, analyze the genetic markers of everyone in the facility, and simultaneously monitor communications traffic across 17 star systems. But what struck him most was how fundamentally human he still felt. "Like myself," he said finally. "But with the tools to become what I was always meant to be." The first test of Marcus's new capabilities came sooner than expected. The archive's monitoring systems detected a massive military buildup in the Krillian Empire. Emperor Vrakthal, the former mining station commander who had survived the Kepler 442b incident, had convinced his people that humanity represented an existential threat to galactic stability. "They're mobilizing against Earth," Sarah reported, her face grim as she reviewed the intelligence data. 3 battle fleets, supported by Thrallaxian mercenaries and Vorthak assault troops. "They plan to eliminate humanity before we can spread what they call our chaotic influence throughout the galaxy." Marcus studied the tactical displays with his enhanced perception, seeing patterns and possibilities that would have been invisible to him before the transformation. The Krillian plan was sophisticated, incorporating pincer movements and supply line management that showed centuries of military experience. It was also doomed to failure because it was based on fundamental misunderstandings about human nature and capabilities. "They're treating this like a conventional conquest," Marcus observed. "They expect Earth to surrender when faced with overwhelming force. Then, they'll occupy our worlds and suppress our culture. They don't understand that humans don't surrender, we adapt." Sarah nodded. "The question is whether we can prepare Earth's defenses in time. The fleets will reach the Sol system in 6 months." Marcus turned to the archive guards who had gathered in the command center. These were his people now, humans who had been transformed and enhanced but who remained fundamentally human in their thinking and values. Looking at them, Marcus saw not alien hybrids but humanity's true potential finally realized. "We're not going to defend Earth the way they expect," Marcus announced. "We're going to show them what happens when you underestimate human adaptability." The next 6 months transformed human space in ways that defied every galactic power's understanding of technological development. Using progenitor knowledge, the Archive Guards established manufacturing facilities on asteroids throughout the Sol system. But rather than simply copying ancient technology, they innovated, adapting progenitor principles to human engineering approaches. The results were vessels that looked nothing like conventional starships, but incorporated human tactical thinking with technology millions of years advanced. Where other species built ships as mobile fortresses, humans created vessels that could adapt their configuration during combat, shifting from exploration modes to combat roles to support functions as needed. Marcus oversaw the development personally, his enhanced awareness allowing him to coordinate construction across dozens of facilities simultaneously. But he also made sure to involve Earth's existing military and scientific leadership, sharing enough knowledge to prepare them for what was coming without revealing the full scope of the transformation taking place. Admiral Janet Morrison of the Solar Defense Fleet was one of the first Earth leaders to meet Marcus after his transformation. She entered the meeting expecting to brief a mining engineer who had somehow gained access to advanced alien technology. Instead, she found herself facing someone who could answer questions about fleet tactics that she hadn't even thought to ask. "Mr. Chun," Admiral Morrison said carefully, "the reports we're receiving about alien military capabilities are concerning. But some of the defensive preparations we're seeing in the outer system, they're beyond anything in our current technological base." Marcus studied the Admiral with senses that could read her stress patterns, analyze her genetic markers, and predict her psychological responses with startling accuracy. But what he focused on was the quality that had made her a successful military leader: the ability to adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining focus on her core mission. "Admiral," Marcus said, "humanity is about to face its first major test as a galactic civilization. The species that have dismissed us as primitives are coming to eliminate what they see as a threat to their established order. But they've made the same mistake that failing civilizations always make. They've confused current capabilities with future potential." Morrison leaned forward, her military instincts recognizing something important in Marcus's words. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that humans have capabilities these aliens have never encountered before. Not because we're stronger or smarter or more advanced, but because we approach problems differently. Where they see limitations, we see opportunities. Where they rely on established doctrine, we innovate solutions." Marcus activated a holographic display showing the approaching alien fleets. These forces represent the combined military might of 3 major galactic civilizations. They expect to arrive at Earth and find a primitive world defended by chemical rockets and kinetic weapons. They expect humanity to surrender when faced with overwhelming technological superiority. And instead, Marcus smiled. And Morrison felt a chill as she realized she was looking at something that was simultaneously completely human and utterly beyond anything she had encountered before. Instead, they're going to discover what happens when you try to apply conventional thinking to a species that has never been conventional. The Battle of Sol began when the combined alien fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Emperor Vrakthal commanded personally from his flagship, confident that humanity's resistance would collapse within hours. His fleet included over 300 vessels, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything in Earth's defense forces. What they found waiting for them defied every tactical manual in galactic military history. The asteroid belt had been transformed into a maze of defensive positions that seemed to shift and reorganize as the alien fleet watched. Mining vessels had been converted into mobile platforms that could deploy weapons, shields, or support equipment as needed. And throughout the system, human ships moved with an unpredictability that made conventional targeting systems useless. "This is impossible," Commander Zekthar reported from his battle cruiser. "Their ships are changing configuration during combat. Our weapons are locked onto a destroyer, but it's transforming into a carrier while we watch." Vrakthal stared at the tactical displays in growing confusion. His forces had trained for decades to fight conventional battles against conventional enemies. But the humans weren't fighting conventionally. They were treating the entire solar system as a single adaptive organism, with each vessel serving whatever role was needed at any given moment. The first alien assault wave was met not by concentrated firepower, but by tactics that seemed to come from pure human intuition. Human ships would appear to retreat, drawing alien vessels into what looked like vulnerable positions, then, suddenly, reveal capabilities that turned the attackers into the attacked. Marcus coordinated the defense from the command center on Luna, his enhanced awareness allowing him to process the tactical situation across the entire system simultaneously. But he didn't dictate strategy to the human commanders. Instead, he provided them with information and trusted their human instincts to find solutions that no algorithm could predict. Admiral Morrison, Marcus said through the command network, the Krillian flagship is moving to flank Earth directly. They're trying to force a surrender by threatening the homeworld. Morrison's response came without hesitation. All units, this is Solar One. Execute Operation Adaptation. What followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come, though few species would ever understand the principles involved. The human fleet didn't try to block the alien approach to Earth. Instead, they allowed it, then demonstrated why underestimating human adaptability was a fatal error. As Vrakthal's flagship approached Earth's orbit, confident of victory, it found itself surrounded not by defending vessels, but by the planet's entire moon. Luna had been equipped with progenitor-enhanced engines, and was moving under its own power, positioning itself to serve as a massive shield and weapons platform simultaneously. How is this possible? Vrakthal demanded as his sensors registered what they were seeing. They're moving a planetary satellite like a ship. The answer came from Marcus himself, speaking directly through Luna's communication systems. His voice carried the authority of someone who had inherited the knowledge of the galaxy's oldest civilization, but the tone was purely human. Emperor Vrakthal, Marcus said, you came here expecting to find a primitive species that would surrender to superior force. Instead, you've discovered what the progenitors recognized 3 million years ago, that humanity represents something new in galactic evolution. Surrender now, Vrakthal responded, and your species will be granted protected status under Krillian oversight. Resist further, and you will be eliminated completely. Marcus's laughter echoed across the fleet's communication channels. You still don't understand, do you? This isn't about superior force or advanced technology. This is about the difference between a species that has stopped growing and one that never stops adapting. What happened next shattered every assumption the galactic powers held about their own superiority. The human fleet didn't simply defeat the alien invasion, they converted it. Using capabilities derived from progenitor technology, but implemented through uniquely human innovation, they began demonstrating to the alien crews what their own civilizations could become if they abandoned the stagnation that was killing them. Individual alien ships found their systems infiltrated not by viruses or conventional hacking, but by adaptive programs that showed their crews new possibilities for their own technology. Krillian warriors discovered modifications to their own genetic templates that could enhance their natural abilities. Thrallaxian engineers were presented with solutions to problems their civilization had considered unsolvable. The transformation wasn't forced, it was offered. And for the first time in centuries, members of supposedly advanced civilizations found themselves genuinely learning something new. Emperor Vrakthal watched his fleet's cohesion dissolve not through defeat, but through conversion. His own crew members were requesting permission to board human vessels to learn more about the innovations they were being shown. His allies were opening negotiations rather than continuing attacks. What do you want from us? Vrakthal finally asked, his voice carrying the weight of a civilization's first moment of genuine humility in millennia. Marcus's response came not from Luna but from the bridge of Vrakthal's own flagship, where he had materialized using transportation technology that made the Emperor's own seem primitive. We want what we've always wanted, Marcus said, his human features somehow containing depths of wisdom that spoke of inherited ages. To grow, to learn, to become better than we were. The difference is that we're offering to share that growth with everyone willing to embrace it. The Emperor stared at this human who had somehow transformed from exiled mining engineer to something that commanded respect from the galaxy's oldest technologies. And those who refuse? Marcus's smile was sad but determined. We'll discover that evolution doesn't wait for permission. The galaxy is changing whether your civilizations adapt or not. We're offering partnership instead of replacement, but that offer won't remain open forever. Over the following months, the Sol system became a pilgrimage site for beings from across the galaxy who had grown tired of their civilization's stagnation. Humans shared progenitor knowledge freely, but always adapted through human perspectives and innovations. The result was a renaissance of growth that spread from system to system. Some established powers, like the Krillian Empire, embraced the changes and began the difficult process of cultural adaptation. Others, trapped by their own arrogance, retreated into isolation and slow decline. But humanity's role had been established. They were no longer the primitive outcasts that more advanced species could safely ignore. They had become the inheritors of the galaxy's greatest legacy, and they were sharing that inheritance with anyone wise enough to accept it. Marcus Chun, the mining engineer who had been exiled for trying to save alien lives, had become the guardian of galactic civilization itself. But he never forgot his essential humanity, and he made sure that human values of adaptability, growth, and compassion remained at the heart of everything the new galactic community became. The species that had underestimated humans discovered too late that they had been facing not just another civilization, but the heirs to powers that had shaped the galaxy itself. Those wise enough to join humanity's vision found themselves part of something greater than any single species could achieve. Those too proud to adapt learned that in an ever-changing universe, the refusal to grow is the choice to perish. Humanity had become the ultimate predator not through violence or dominance, but through the most human trait of all, the ability to help others become better than they ever imagined they could be.